On September 16, 2000, a baby boy was born in Arlington, Texas. His name was Taymor McIntyre. Nobody in that hospital room could have predicted that this child would one day become one of the most streamed underground artists in the country, racking up hundreds of millions of plays before he even turned 18. Nobody could have predicted that this same kid would be sitting in a Texas prison cell right now, having just turned 24 years old, with a sentence so long that the math alone is enough to make you stop and stare at the wall. 55 years. That is not a typo. 55 years is what a Texas jury handed Taymor McIntyre, the artist the world knows as TayK, back in 2019. He was 18 years old when they read that verdict, which means if he serves every single day of that sentence, TayK will not walk out of prison until he is in his 70s. Let that land for a second. 70 years old, a man who went viral at 16, who had one of the most shocking rises in rap history, locked away for more than 5 decades. And the scariest part? That is not even his only case. There is another murder charge still hanging over his head that hasn't been fully resolved. But here is the part of the story that most people aren't talking about. While TayK sits inside that cell, his family has not given up. His team has not given up. People who love him have been fighting behind the scenes, filing appeals, pushing on his legal situation from every angle they can find. And just recently, whispers started circulating, claims that TayK might actually be coming home sooner than anyone expected. His family has been making noise, saying the legal fight is not over, that there are developments happening that the public doesn't know about yet. Is that true? Could TayK actually get out? And if he does stay in, what does life look like for a 24-year-old artist inside a Texas prison? What does his day actually look like? What does he eat? How does he survive? And why is his team still dropping music for him right now? Stay with me until the end of this video, because by the time we are done, you are going to understand the full picture. The crimes, the sentence, the prison life, the music, and the question that everybody is really asking: will TayK ever actually come home? To understand where TayK is right now, you have to go back to where it all started, and it started fast. TayK grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and from early on it was clear he had something. The way he rapped, the energy he carried, the attitude he put into his music, it was raw in a way that felt completely unfiltered. He started gaining attention in the underground Texas scene while he was barely a teenager, and by the time he was 15 and 16, people inside hip-hop circles were already talking about him like he was something special. Then 2016 happened, and everything changed. TayK was arrested in connection with a home invasion that took place in Mansfield, Texas, in July of 2016. The incident was violent. An elderly couple, James and Mary True, were targeted in their home. During the robbery, Draylon Mason, a 15-year-old, was shot and killed. This was not a simple case. This was a capital murder charge, the most serious category of homicide under Texas law. TayK was 16 at the time. He was charged as an adult. While he was out on house arrest awaiting trial, TayK did something that defined the entire trajectory of his story. He cut off his ankle monitor and ran. And while he was on the run, he recorded "The Race." That single decision, to flee and to document it, created one of the most surreal moments in modern rap history. The Race dropped in 2017 while TayK was literally a fugitive, wanted by law enforcement, running from a murder charge. The song exploded. Within weeks, it had millions of streams. It climbed charts. It got remixed. It became a cultural moment. Here was this 16, 17-year-old kid on the run from Texas authorities, making one of the most talked about rap songs of the year. The internet did not know how to feel about it. Fans were fascinated. Media was confused. Law enforcement was looking. They caught him in May of 2017 in Elizabeth, New Jersey. He was taken into custody and brought back to Texas to face what was coming. But the story did not end with the capital murder charge from 2016. While TayK was a fugitive, prosecutors alleged that he was involved in additional criminal activity. Specifically, he was charged in connection with another robbery that took place in July 2017 in San Antonio, Texas. During that incident, a 65-year-old man named Mark Saldivar was killed. TayK and others were charged in connection with that murder as well. So by the time TayK was actually sitting in front of a jury, he was not dealing with one serious case. He was dealing with a pattern of conduct that prosecutors laid out systematically, painting a picture of a teenager who was not just running from the law, but allegedly committing serious violent crimes while doing it. The capital murder trial for the 2016 Mansfield home invasion took place in 2019. TayK was 18 years old when he sat in that courtroom. The evidence was presented, the jury deliberated, and when they came back, the verdict was guilty. The sentence was 55 years. Under Texas law, that sentence carries specific terms. TayK must serve at least half of his sentence, roughly 27 years, before he becomes eligible for parole consideration. He was 18 when sentenced in 2019. That means the earliest he could potentially be considered for parole under current law is somewhere around 2046. He would be in his mid-40s, and that is the best-case scenario, not a guarantee. The second murder charge, connected to the San Antonio incident involving Mark Saldivar, has added another layer of legal complexity to TayK's situation. If that case results in an additional conviction, it could stack on top of what he is already serving. That is a scenario his legal team has been working to navigate, and it is part of why his family continues to emphasize that the fight is not over. 55 years for someone who had not even finished developing as a human being, a teenager, someone who could not legally buy a beer, could not legally vote, could not rent a car, but was handed a sentence that stretches into old age. That is the reality TayK is living with right now on the other side of that birthday. So what does life actually look like for TayK inside prison? Because once the headlines fade and the appeals slow down and the music drops stop being news, there is still a real person sitting inside a Texas Department of Criminal Justice facility every single day. And that reality is a lot more grim than most people want to think about. TayK is currently housed within the Texas Department of Criminal Justice system, which operates over 100 facilities across the state. Inmates in the TDCJ system live on a structured schedule that is rigid, repetitive, and designed to leave very little room for personal autonomy. Every day looks almost exactly like the one before it. The morning starts early. In most TDCJ facilities, inmates are up before 5 a.m. There is no sleeping in. There is no easing into the day. You hear the unit come to life around you, and you get up with it. By 5 or 5:30 in the morning, TayK is expected to be awake, his bunk made, his area organized. Inspections happen, rules are enforced. The staff does not care that you are 24 years old. They do not care that you had a hit record. They do not care about your follower count or your streaming numbers. You are an inmate and you follow the schedule. Breakfast is early, typically served before 6 a.m. The food in TDCJ facilities is notoriously basic. Think institutional cooking on a tight budget. Eggs that have been sitting in steam trays, bread, grits, whatever protein fits the week's rotation. It is caloric, but it is not good. For someone who grew up in a culture where food is community, where meals carry meaning, the daily reality of prison cafeteria food is its own kind of grinding punishment. You eat what they give you, when they give it, and you do not complain about it. After breakfast, the day opens into a routine that is equal parts structure and emptiness. TayK, like most inmates in the Texas system, has access to certain designated periods throughout the day. Time for the day room, time for recreation, time for programming if he is enrolled. Cells are typically locked down during certain hours, and movement around the facility is controlled and monitored. Work assignments are a significant part of life inside TDCJ. Texas is actually one of the states that requires inmates to work, and they do not get paid for it. Yes, you read that correctly. Texas prison labor is largely unpaid. Inmates can be assigned to kitchen duty, laundry, agricultural work, facility maintenance, or other operational roles depending on their classification and the needs of the unit. There is no clocking in for hourly wages. There is no paycheck at the end of the week. You work because the system requires it. Recreation is available for a limited window each day, usually a couple of hours where inmates can go to a yard, exercise, socialize within their unit. For someone like TayK, who is young and physically active, the recreation period is probably one of the few parts of the day that offers any genuine release. But even that comes with its own complications. Prison yards are not safe spaces. They are environments where tensions exist, where hierarchies operate, where you have to be constantly aware of the dynamics around you. Being a famous rapper does not make you untouchable. In some ways, it makes you a target. Commissary is the economic lifeline of prison life. This is the store inside the facility where inmates can purchase items that go beyond what the state provides. Snacks, hygiene products, over-the-counter medication, stationery, and other basics. To access commissary, you need money in your inmate trust account. That money comes from one of two places: families sending funds from the outside or wages earned from prison work programs. Since Texas prison wages are essentially non-existent or extremely minimal for most jobs, the majority of inmates depend heavily on outside support to maintain any quality of life beyond the bare minimum the state provides. For TayK, the commissary situation is directly connected to his music. Here is something that a lot of people do not fully appreciate about TayK's situation. The music has not stopped. While TayK is locked inside a Texas prison, his team has been actively working to release material, and the releases have been intentional, not just for legacy preservation, but as a practical financial mechanism to keep money flowing into his commissary account. Think about what that means for a second. The songs being released now are not just artistic statements. They are TayK's ability to eat something better than what the cafeteria is pushing. They are his ability to buy hygiene products that are not state-issued. They are his ability to afford phone time to call his family. Every stream, every download, every placement on a playlist generates revenue that eventually makes its way into his world, even if that world is currently measured in square footage that would not fill a decent-sized walk-in closet. His team has been mining his catalog, unreleased records, older sessions, collaborations, and putting them out strategically. The reception has been mixed in terms of mainstream attention, but his core fan base has remained loyal. There are people who followed TayK from before the race, who are still streaming his music today, still engaging with his content, still keeping his name alive in conversations about rap. And that loyalty matters more than it might seem on the surface, because in the absence of the artist himself, loyalty is the only currency that keeps the machine running. TayK cannot go on tour. He cannot do interviews. He cannot build his brand through social media presence or collaborations or all the modern tools that artists use to stay relevant. All he has is the music that already exists, and whatever he can create through whatever limited means are available to him inside. It is worth noting that some artists have actually found ways to continue creating from behind bars, through recorded phone calls, through written lyrics passed to producers on the outside, through whatever access they can get. Whether TayK has been able to contribute to new material in any meaningful way is not something that has been clearly confirmed, but the infrastructure his team has built around him suggests that they are committed to keeping his presence in the culture alive for as long as possible. And that matters not just financially, but legally. An artist whose name still carries weight, whose streams are still climbing, whose fan base is still vocal. That is an artist whose case still gets attention. Attention means pressure. Pressure means that lawyers, advocates, and journalists keep looking at the case. And that continued scrutiny is part of what keeps the legal fight alive. Now let's talk about the family, because this is a part of the story that deserves real attention. TayK's mother, Destiny Jackson, has been one of the most publicly vocal advocates for her son since his incarceration. She has used social media to speak directly to fans, to address misconceptions about the case, to humanize her son in a media environment that has often reduced him to a headline or a cautionary tale. She is a mother who lost her child to the system when he was still a teenager, and she has never stopped fighting. The claims that have been circulating recently, that TayK might be coming home sooner than people think, have come largely from his family circle. They have been suggesting, without getting into specific legal details publicly, that there are developments happening on the appeals and legal review front that could change the timeline people are currently assuming. Appeals in Texas are a long, complicated process. Texas has a multi-tiered appeals system that includes direct appeal to the Court of Criminal Appeals, post-conviction habeas corpus petitions, and potential federal appeals if constitutional issues can be established. An 18-year-old receiving a 55-year sentence has significant legal ground to potentially challenge on multiple fronts: jury selection processes, constitutional questions about sentencing juveniles as adults, ineffective assistance of counsel claims, and more. The Eighth Amendment of the United States Constitution has been interpreted by the Supreme Court in recent decades to place certain restrictions on how severely juvenile offenders can be sentenced. While TayK was technically 18 when sentenced, meaning he was legally an adult, the offenses he was convicted for occurred when he was 16. The question of how that affects his constitutional protections is not a simple one, and it is exactly the kind of legal question that serious appellate attorneys look for. Whether TayK's family's claims about upcoming developments are based on real legal progress, or whether they represent the kind of hopeful optimism that families in impossible situations cling to, that is impossible for anyone outside his legal team to say with certainty right now. What is clear is that his family believes in the fight, and they have not stopped pushing. The thing about watching someone you love in prison is that the cruelty is not always dramatic. It is not always what you see in movies. Sometimes the cruelty is in the small things. The fact that phone calls are expensive and monitored. The fact that visiting hours are limited and require long drives to facilities that are not always easy to reach. The fact that the person you love is aging inside a building you cannot enter freely. TayK's mother has watched her son go from 17 to 24 inside a prison. She has watched him have birthdays behind bars, and she has kept showing up, kept speaking, kept fighting. That is not nothing, that is actually everything. Let's take a moment to zoom out and think about what TayK's story represents in a broader context, because it is more complicated than a simple good guy or bad guy narrative. The crimes that TayK was convicted of were serious. People died. Families were destroyed. James and Mary True experienced something horrific in their own home. Mark Saldivar's family lost someone they loved. Those losses are real, and they deserve acknowledgement. This is not a video that is going to minimize what happened to the victims in these cases, but it is also possible to hold that truth and simultaneously recognize that handing an 18-year-old for actions that began when he was 16, a 55-year sentence raises profound questions about what the American criminal justice system is actually trying to accomplish. Is it rehabilitation? Because 55 years does not leave much runway for a rehabilitated person to contribute anything to society. Is it punishment? If so, the math on the punishment extends well past what most criminologists would consider proportional to deterrence. Is it public safety? Possibly, but the same public safety goal could theoretically be achieved with far fewer decades. These are not comfortable questions. They are not questions with clean answers, but they are questions that people across the political spectrum, from criminal justice reformers to constitutional scholars, have been grappling with for decades as they look at the outcomes of tough-on-crime sentencing frameworks. TayK is one data point in a much larger system, a system that catches a lot of people young, sentences them hard, and then largely forgets about them, except when their music keeps playing on the outside and reminds everyone that there is a real person behind the story. He just turned 24. He has, under current terms, potentially 31 more years before parole eligibility. He is spending his 20s, the years that most people spend figuring out who they are and what they want their life to be, inside a Texas correctional facility. He wakes up before 5 a.m. every day. He eats institutional food. He works for free. He exercises in a controlled yard. He makes phone calls that cost money he does not have unless his music generates it. He sits in a cell at night, and whatever he thinks about, his family, his music, his future, his past, he thinks about alone. And his team drops a song, and his fans stream it. And the money flows slowly into an account that lets him buy something from the commissary so that the day is a little more bearable than it would otherwise be. That is the life of TayK at 24. The question everybody keeps coming back to is whether there is any realistic path out. And the answer is, yes, there are paths. Whether any of them lead anywhere is a different conversation. The appeals process is ongoing. His family is making noise. There are attorneys who specialize in exactly the kind of juvenile sentencing questions that TayK's case involves. The legal landscape around sentencing people for crimes committed as minors has been shifting, and cases that seemed airtight 10 years ago have been successfully challenged in more recent years as courts have evolved their thinking. There is also the political dimension. Criminal justice reform has become a legitimate policy conversation in Texas and nationally. Advocates who push for resentencing review of cases involving juvenile offenders have won victories in multiple states. Whether those wins eventually blow in TayK's direction depends on how the legal and political environment continues to evolve, and on whether his team can mount a compelling enough challenge to get his case reconsidered at a higher level. His mother has said publicly that she believes her son is coming home. That is a mother's faith, and it should be respected as such. It is also, practically speaking, a statement that keeps the pressure on, keeps the public conversation alive, and keeps the legal team motivated to find every possible angle. Is TayK coming home soon? The honest answer is that nobody outside his legal circle knows. What we do know is that the fight is not over, the music is still playing, and the family is still showing up. When you look at the whole picture of TayK's life, the rise, the fall, the crimes, the sentence, the prison reality, the music, the family, what you are really looking at is a story about what happens when extraordinary talent collides with catastrophic decisions at the youngest, most vulnerable point of a person's life. What you are looking at is a story about the unforgiving arithmetic of the American legal system when it decides to make an example. And what you are looking at is a story about the people, the mother, the team, the fans, who refuse to let a person become only the worst thing they were ever associated with. TayK is 24 years old. He is a number in a Texas prison database. He is also a son, an artist, a person who made music that millions of people connected with, and a human being who is living out the consequences of decisions made when his brain had not even finished developing. Whether you feel sympathy or you feel that justice was served, and reasonable people can feel both simultaneously, the reality of how he is spending his days inside that facility is, by any objective measure, a hard thing to sit with. He just turned 24, and the count continues. If this story made you think, if it raised questions you want to keep talking about, drop your perspective in the comments. This conversation is bigger than one artist and one case. It touches on how we as a society handle young people who make violent mistakes, what justice actually means, and whether the system we have built serves the outcomes we say we want. Let's talk about it.